This is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight. Where's the speaker? Oh, Mickey B. No, it says right here. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Harold. Sorry. Harold O.
My name is Harold Alcoholic. I'm not Mickey B. One of us is from over the water, and one of us is from South Central. And Mickey's from South Central. No, Mickey's a good man. Hey, I'm really thanks, Dave, for asking me. Excuse me. I like that thing. Hey, thanks. I like that thing about criticizing the speaker, because you got to do that. If you're in Alcoholics Anonymous, the only time you got to find fault. But I'm hoping that you don't. One thing I noticed about the gentleman who took cakes is I saw the gleam in their eyes, and that gleam is priceless here, you know, because what I'm seeing are two men who are in recovery, and for this moment their lives are great. And you know, today I woke up today and I just felt absolutely marvelous. Today I had one of those days of grace, and I want to thank Dave for asking me to share. I want to actually thank you for rescuing me from what I call the Death Star meeting. Now, the Death Star meeting was started by a couple of new guys about 9 months ago. And I'm the only guy with any length of time in the meeting, and every week it is all about everything but Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, it's about this, the woman, the job, that, the depression, the and I you know what? I have tried every week to get out of this meeting because I sponsor one of the guys, and then finally I got to the point where I had to say, you know what? It's my responsibility to share the hope and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous as it's in the book with these guys. And every week, I'm a fucking thorn in their sides. You know what I mean? But, excuse my language. But that's what I have to do. And you know what? As a result, the meeting is getting better. I still call it the Death Star, but that's okay. For the new guys that are here, I just got this call today from Tony back there. We had never talked, and he called me about, I guess, 2 o'clock this afternoon, and we were talking for about 20 minutes, and he was sharing his story. I was sharing mine. Man, he's new, and it just took me right back, and what a connection that we had today. And I really want to thank you for showing up, because I told him, hey, you know, you're down in Venice. I'm speaking at this meeting, ironically, and you show up, and I got a new friend. I got a new friend here, and I'm really appreciative of it. This room means a lot to me. You know, I don't get to this meeting very often, but I got sober. I mean, did not get so. I went to a lot of meetings in this room in the beginning, but I got a lot of history in this neighborhood. One of my best friends, when I was 15 years old, lived on McConnell. We used to call him Osprey, and when I was 15, for a couple of weeks, we both got introduced to like narcotics, and he overdosed and died the next week. And I always remember this guy, and you know, I remember the market here when it was I forget the market. I remember Tito's when it was 15 cents on the corner of Washington Place in Venice, where Lucy's is. When I was 22, I just got back from New York, and I was drinking and strung out, and my mom sent me down the street to Synanon, and that was my first foray into recovery, because that I walked into that place. It was crazy, man. I walked in that place and they shaved your head and made you stop smoking. I had to detox on this big couch, no meds. You know, everything. The couch thing wasn't so bad, but the but the no smoking got me, you know. I mean, that really bothered me. I was young then, and I still, you know, I could. I threw up for a couple of days, but then it was, you know, it was okay, you know. But it was the smoking that got me. I remember one morning, they used to make you run from Synanon. I think Shutters is there now, but from Synanon down to the Washington Street Pier and back. And I was there about 3 months, and this was total. It was a cult. I mean, you're right to talk about the traditions about us not having any leaders, but this was definitely, for all practical purposes, was a cult. And they made you run. This guy shaking his head. They made you run like, oh man, it was just. Anyway, one day it was a high tide and these big sand dunes, and in Santa Monica, and I had my shorts, I had some tennis shoes on and a T-shirt, and it was about 6:30 in the morning, and I'm running with the pack, falling behind. All of a sudden, those sand dunes look good. And I just shot out, man. I just said, you know what? I'm out of here, man. I just shot over those sand dunes. And my first geographic, I put my first geographic when I was 22 years old. By the way, I got sober October 1st, 1988. And but I had been struggling with this thing since I was a kid, you know. And I am an alcoholic. My last day out, I remember sitting in my car. And I was on a boosting run with my buddy, you know, in a kind of a he stole a car from his mom, and we were out riding in it for about a month. And we were, you know, I was skinny, and we were up at West Side Pavilion. I was trying to, you know, steal clothes, you know, to support the next day, right? And he had got caught, and I just sat in my car, and I just said, oh man, you know what? I just saw my whole life pass before me. Like, I ran out of options. And the first thing that happened was I started feeling really calm. And I don't know if any of you guys here are familiar with any kind of suicide, but that was, you know, I got really strangely, eerily calm for the first time in years. You know, because I had thought I had done this thing right to the best of my ability. I'd gone to Synanon, I'd gone to this place, I'd gone to that place. I'd get out, things would, you know, be going fine, and then all of a sudden, you know, I'd start drinking again, and I'd be off to the races. And you know, this was the final time. I was sitting in my car, didn't have a place to stay, didn't have anybody, you know, in my life worth caring for, no work, no prospects of any kind of hope. And I decided, you know what, Harold, it's time for you to check out, because this is, you know what, there's no way out of this deal. I think only us know that kind of alcoholic pain. The source of my pain was my alcoholism, and I tried to commit suicide that night, didn't work, didn't have enough this, that, whatever happened, didn't happen. One more time, went back to my mother and father's house, and they put me in a detox, and that was there that I finally heard the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. It took me about 2 weeks. You know, they would give me meds in this place, and you know, they'd just take the edge off. And then I just started saying, oh, I'm really sick. I'm really sick. You need to give me more, give me more. So I started hounding these meds. And by the end of 2 weeks, I had a pretty good stash going of Valium. And I kept taking them. And then I'd get a little buzz. But you know, after a month, 6 weeks, and I went to a sober living. And that was the first time I really got in touch with how much my life had just gone down the tube, and I just didn't have anything. So a lot of men stuck their hands out to me when I was new, and the first thing they told me was to get a sponsor, which I did, and that was an amazing thing, because I'm a guy, I don't reach out for help. I'm not good at help, you know. I'm not good at asking for help. I'm not good with authority. I remember the saying my friend told me, I just shared about this the other day, when you know, I'd walk into a meeting, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I would think, look at these losers, man. You know, look at this. Why do they have to keep coming back to this stuff time after time? And he told me, you know what? You're looking at a room full of rebels, and once I understood that everybody in here, we are rebels by nature. You know, and this is not one of our strengths. Is surrender. Things started clicking for me, and I was on a plane, and when I was living at this motel off of Los Angeles Boulevard, when it was good by the freeway, one of those, you know, funky motels. I remember my girlfriend at the time. I had disappeared for about 3 months, and I was on my way in this stolen Monte Carlo, me and my running buddy, I've never seen since. And my wife, my now wife, she pulls up right, it just happened. She was just pulled up, we were on our way to go to downtown, and she pulls up right beside me. She looks at me, and she just starts crying. Just starts crying. It's about 2 weeks before I you know, got some help. And I tell the guy, he's driving, I go, get on the freeway, let's go. Don't look at her. She's going, and she follows me all the way downtown, and finally we lose her. And I remember the hurt. I remember the hurt on her face, you know, because that's what we do. And I remember the look on my father's face when you know, he had caught me in his house doing some stuff I shouldn't have been doing, and it was I remember him just, I'd never heard him cry before until that day. And you know, part of my story is drugs, but for the most part it's alcohol. But he walked in on me when I was shooting dope, and I'd never seen him crying. I just turned to stone, like it didn't happen, you know. I think I told him I was diabetic, and this was I didn't tell you, Pop, but I'm fucking diabetic, and the cooker there is not the best way to do insulin, but this is what I have to do because I ran out. The hurt in his face, and oh man, I'm gonna tell you something. About 7 years ago. My dad was 90 when he died. Great guy. You know, he was always bailed me out of shit. He and my mom, they always bailed me out. Because I could always, like, you know, I'm going to get back on my feet. Like one year I'd be doing good. I'd be just out of one of these treatment centers, and, you know, I'd get back on my feet. I'd get a good job, you know, and then all of a sudden, bam, I'm, you know, living independently. Next minute, I'm knocking on their door with a bunch of, you know, bags. And he always bailed me out. They didn't know what to do. But before he died, I think one of the greatest gifts I've gotten in this program is he saw me when I was 10 years sober and was married to the same woman, and I had managed to buy a house, and he wasn't scared of me anymore. He wasn't scared of me, you know, and towards the end, as my disease progressed, I became increasingly angry at him, you know, and my mother for no reason. That's what we do, you know. The things we value most are the first things that go, you know. And I remember one time my dad was standing. He was on a corner. I was coming down, and for some reason I was drunk, and I saw him standing yelling at me because I was driving crazy, and I you know what? I swerved in front of him, and he stepped back. Like, I mean, the guy had to have been 80 then, and it just tore me up inside. You know, was that me? Yeah, that was me. That's who I become when I start drinking and start doing drugs and become a different person. And slowly but surely, you know, I began to learn about the disease of alcoholism and what my problem was. I used to always think that, and when I started drinking, I would always it would be, I'd turn into instant like a Raymond Chandler character, like Philip Marlowe, like you and me against the world. Like I am going to be, whenever I have something, it's like, okay, now I got to fend for myself. Spirituality goes out the door. I want to be by myself, and I am at guard against everybody and everything. Instant, like, I would always end up in the places where my insides matched my outsides, no matter how much money I had or what I was doing. If I was drinking and going down the path, I would pick these shady places to hole up, and I'd feel perfectly at home, because that's the way my mind was. You know, I wanted a place where my insides are all tore up, and so I wanted the outsides to be all tore up. You know, and I would wind up there. My point is that I had never known that the source of all of my problems were my alcoholism. And it wasn't until, you know, I came in here, got a sponsor, you know, I started learning the basic stuff that I got was take a commitment at meetings and get a sponsor. Because by taking a commitment, I learned to show up a half an hour before the meeting, make coffee, and stay half an hour later and do it on a consistent basis. Because I had no job skills when I got here. I have great job skills now. I had none then. I've been a sloth, a lazy guy all my life. And sometimes in Alcoholics Anonymous, your greatest liabilities become your assets. So I try and show up on time. I try to keep my commitments here. All the stuff that that you guys taught me here. How do you repay Alcoholics Anonymous for giving a life back, you know? I came to get that gratitude. I think it was in my 10th year that Alcoholics Anonymous had given me so much more than I could ever have imagined. Not just the material things, but I heard a speaker share. He said there should be a plaque on my house that says "Property of Alcoholics Anonymous." There should be a plaque on my car door that says "Property of Alcoholics Anonymous." My wife should go on with a medallion that says "Property of Alcoholics Anonymous." Because if I didn't have you guys to let me know how to live life, and Alcoholics Anonymous to show me what the way for me was, then I wouldn't have any of this. I have no doubt. I'm the most undisciplined person you can find. I was, you know what, back in the early days, I grew up kind of in the 60s, and I was like one of the only black surfers in fucking California ever. I mean, I grew up around here, you know, and I would watch some of my friends. I just got a call from a friend of mine today, still surfing. I go up there every couple months. We hit the water. And he was one of those guys that was around us but never really crossed the line, you know. And I knew very early on that I had crossed that line because, man, I would be not showing up for school on Monday. I'd be still hanging out in one of these houses where the mom's gone away and knows dad, and we'd just party all the way through the week. And I remember thinking to myself that even back then, how different I was than other people. And I was on a plane once when my wife and I went to Hawaii about 10 years ago. I remember it was probably one of our first vacations in Hawaii, and we were sitting in coach, and we're going to Maui, and this guy this steward comes, looks at me, comes back, he looks at me, goes, and he kind of looks like he knew me, you know, and I didn't know who the guy was, but anyway, he says, hey man, aren't you Butch Owens? I go, yeah, I hadn't heard that name for a long time. I go, yeah, well, who are you? And he tells me, you know, he used to live down at Toes, and he says, and my wife's looking at the guy, and, you know, he's got his act together, and he got sober. And we started cutting up the past, you know, all the friends who died. Most of my friends either are in jail and have died, or they got sober. You know, it was very few that really were just normal. I mean, I don't know. We just, you know, they're just a handful of guys. But anyway, we were telling these stories, and my wife was looking at me like I was a different person, because my wife's a normie, you know. I met her like she was in grad school at UCLA, and I was managing a bookstore, and like she looked solid, just like the woman I need, you know, a rocket scientist and somebody who can take care of me, and you know, business attire. Oh, those are the women I'm attracted to, man. You know, because back then it was like, oh yeah, man, I could do, man, we can hang out. Anyway, she's looking at me. She's looking at me, and this guy says to her, she says, "You know what? Your husband was, he was a bad motherfucker." You know what I mean? And she said she couldn't believe that I had this double life. You know, she couldn't believe that I had the kind of history, and you know, and I do. We here know that we have many lives before we get sober, and I went through all phases of them, man. Like I said, I moved to Colorado for my first geographic right after Synanon, and I thought that would help, you know. And I remember I had no money. I was staying with a friend of mine and his wife, and he didn't drink. But his wife had this, man, and she had all these collections of bottles of great bourbon, like Wild Turkey, 100 proof, like 25 years old, and ceramic stuff, and all this stuff, man. And I'm back there. I'm just got out of center. I probably had about 3 months, nothing, no program, didn't know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous. Back then they said, if you're in center, this is a lifetime program. You stay here or you're going to fall. And I go, nah. Anyway, I get out there. 3 months later, I'm in my friend's house, and I start looking at those bottles, and I'm thinking, man, what if I just, I know what I'll do. I'll steam the cap off that Wild Turkey. That's 100 proof. I don't need much. I started steaming these bottles, and every day, man, when they go out to work, I'd be steaming bottles. I'd be pouring water in them. And I'd kind of get them all back. And after a while, I had taken all their booze, and they had like little bits, right? And then the labels are starting to come apart, and that's when the things got really mean and nasty, you know, because I had stolen from my best friend, and he had given me shelter. He had taken me under his wing and given me shelter. And I stole from him. He's one of my best friends. I just talked to him, you know, just recently, and we remain friends. But I guess my point to all this is that it takes it takes a lot of courage to come in here, surrender, and do the work. I think it takes a tremendous amount of courage. But what is harder is it's a lot of work being an alcoholic, and I never knew how much hard work it was. I mean, every day I'd have to get up, I'd have to think about how I was going to survive every day for a number of years. I never knew what my potential was as a human. First of all, I never felt as a human being until, certainly as an adult, until I was sober about 9 months. I remember I was living in a sober living. It was cost $125 a week to stay there. I was working at a job doing phone sales, and I was making about $100 a week. And plus I had to do food, and I had, you know, it was like a hopeless situation. I was the worst salesman in the world. Here I am. It was Santa Fe Freight and Salvage. And here's my moniker, hey, this is Harry from Santa Fe Freight and Salvage. We just got an overturned rail car, and I got all these power tools. And they give me these cards that read from like Iowa and Davenport, Iowa. And I'm talking to the farm guys, and I'm trying to put on a farmy accent, and I'm not selling jack, man. I got a false name. Everything's like, but it was some guys in the program, and they still do it. I mean, it's a great thing. I mean, having those kind of support, I mean, the getting you back on your feet. Anyway, it's something I had to go do every day. I remember sitting with my friend Ira. I just got one of those $87 paychecks for 2 weeks worth of work, and I owed rent. And it was a Friday night, and I was on my way to Dickens out in the valley. Great meeting, and the sun was going down, and I think I had my sponsor. I started working the steps, and I saw it was like what they talk about in the book. It wasn't a spiritual experience. I didn't see any fire or anything. But my ideas of God have so changed radically over the years. I used to think I was agnostic. I used to think I was an atheist, all that stuff. Anyway, man, the sun was going down. I was with my friend Ira. We were on our way to a meeting. I didn't have any money. And for no reason at all, I felt hope, and I felt God's presence. And that was a remarkable experience for me, because I had never felt that ever in my life. And it charged me up, man. I was on fire. I was lit, like I had taken the big shot of that wild turkey. I was lit, And like today, I was lit. I was lit coming all day. I was thinking, oh man, I was driving. I had a lot of driving to do in my car. And I was thinking, and I had a Joe and Charlie tape. This is what I do. This is kind of crazy, but I always space out, and I think, man, I'm going to get up there and blank out, So I put Joe and Charlie tape in to get me going, all day. Joe and Charlie. And while they're talking, I'm having these great ideas about, oh yeah, I can know about this. Oh yeah, I'm going to talk about that. Fuck, I have no idea what I thought about, but I'm just going from what I off the cuff though. So it never seems to amaze me. I'm not, I've learned to become. I have a job where I have to speak a lot now. Oh, I went back to school. I did all this. I did a lot of work, man. I did a lot of work. I had to raise the bar on myself, and I think when I got back, when I finished my 5th and 6th step, that's when my outside world started to change. That's when I started figuring out, one, who I was, what my problem was, and what I needed to do to maintain sobriety. I still go to a lot of meetings every week. I sponsor guys. There's some guys here that there's some people here that I absolutely love, absolutely, and I wanted to raise the bar in my life. There were so many amends that I needed to make to other people that weren't there, and there were not that many financial amends, except to the IRS and my parents. Those were my major amends, because I was like a serial robber in terms of them from the time I was a kid, Times I was a kid, I hit the purse, When I was 15, I remember this time when I was 15, I was telling my wife we were in San Francisco last weekend, and when I was 15, we went up to Muir Beach, and I said, yeah, I haven't been up here since I was 15. And she said, what do you do up here with 15? Oh, I was hitchhiked up by myself. No, I was with a buddy. We hitchhiked up here, and we spent like a month up here in the summer. And I said, this is the beach. We used to have a little commune here. I was telling her all this story. And then she goes, well, what'd your parents, what'd your mother and father say? I go, oh, I just told them, I called them when I got up here. I didn't, I just left, and I ran away. I didn't call it running away. I called it being a 15-year-old independent. And I drive by my old high school, and I see these kids my age when I was there. I go, my God, they're so young. They're so young. And, it was a different time then. You can't do that stuff now. But that life, that I led when I in the beginning, my values have not changed in terms of politics or what I want out of life or being happy. And but what's changed is my definition of spirituality and God. And I'm not, I was never religious, but I've always felt something going on, and I can't. It's something that I can't intellectualize. And when I intellectualize God, I will X God out of the picture. I will say, no, you know what? When I start thinking about God, I start thinking this is too crazy. There's nobody up there. There's no dude with the beard. I'm responsible for my destiny. That was a good one. That kept me loaded for a long time. I'm responsible for my destiny. This life is meaningless. All that trite crap, that I got into. But when I look back now, I've always felt God's presence in my life. And mainly, I think through the work with the steps, it says in the book that's what this book is for, is to provide the basis to get you to the next spiritual place. I know it didn't say that, but you know that stuff. I'm not a big book quoter, but I understand that the reason for the steps is for your spiritual life. And whatever you define God, that's why I love Alcoholics Anonymous, man. It is, you know what? I go into meetings all over the world with so many different people. You guys have enlarged my world. My first definition of spirituality was feeling a part of and looking people in the eye and feeling that comfort from another human being. Because I was an that was my whole MO, was to isolate. And just hole up, And so like I said, I can't intellectualize God, but I feel God. I feel God. And I feel God when I look out at you guys. I feel God when I come home and my wife's there and I am in a relationship for 15 years, married. That's spirituality to me. In a way, it's my truth, And it's not the way that's not the way I shouldn't be, I should be, I should be divorced by now, I had this dinner, I was telling Jeff, I had this dinner with this gorgeous attorney the other night. And she took me out to dinner because we were doing some work, and and my ring hand is like, thinking, yeah. Anyway, I'm like getting, I'm so crazy. God always does for me what I can't do for myself, because I will try. Boy, that's. I've been really lucky in that area, right? But it's funny. And then finally, I was at a meeting. I was telling her I was married, and she said, "Oh, I didn't know you were married." Yeah, Fuck, I got character defects, I guess, on that. But anyway, one day at a time. My marriage is like one day at a time, just like my sobriety, and that means that one day at a time, we have lived together for 15 years, and we have lived in a one-bedroom apartment to, now we own a house and we have a dog, and it don't get much better than that, I make a decent living. I'm not, I work in the entertainment business, but I don't, my salary is just regular. I mean, it's just a regular old working salary, and I love what I do. That's the benefit, man. And it's not the property, the prestige, or any of that. It is, I'm lucky enough to work with guys when I can take a call from like my friend Tony over there. And we can have this exchange. And I'm grateful to Alcoholics Anonymous. You guys saved my life. There's nothing I can do to repay you. What can I do to repay you? How can I repay you? What has worked for me in the beginning continues to work today. Go to meetings, work the program. Every year I go to I try to hit all those Joe and Charlie workshops because they light me up. But also every year I go to retreat in Vermont, in East Dorset, where Bill Wilson was born. And it's me, a bunch of guys from the East Coast, and we get together and we do a 4-step workshop. and we're together 4 days, and we go through 1 through 4, and then we do a 5th step with each other. My friend Doug goes there, and when I was there the first time, I know I got to close quick, but when I was there for the first time, I started reading the old archives, because they got this great archives, and learning about the history of Alcoholics Anonymous. I had never known, like, how this deal started, what were the stories, how in the depths of the Depression that these alcoholics, Bill and Bob, when their outside was as hopeless as when the inside was as hopeless as the outside, there was no work, nothing. How did they come to find this and start this wonderful program? Revolutionary, And the more I learned about the history of Alcoholics Anonymous, the more I felt a part of it. And I was like 10 years sober when I started reading about the good old timers and all. And it's just wonderful stuff to read and to feel a part of in AA. I want to encourage you to do that. If you're new, is find out about the history. Own this thing, man. This is our deal. They gave that to us, And I think I'm gonna close. So I want to thank you for being here, and yeah, thanks.